let's just get to this great goalie debate. The Ersson workload question. There are 10 games left in this season, including one back-to-back on April 5th and 6th. That's a Friday, Saturday. I believe it's Columbus, and we did this last
Buffalo,
night.
I think.
Buffalo and Columbus.
Buffalo first game, then Columbus is a Saturday.
So not exactly the highest quality of opponent. Also, we've seen how that can go when you just kind of mark down points on the schedule. Flyers tend to play up and down to their level of competition somewhat.
Like that.
But 10 games left. Not a huge workload over the final 22 days, 3-ish weeks. But it's sizable. I mean, it's sizable.
It's a normal amount of hockey games for a 3-week period.
It's not as if they have like 3 back-to-backs in there, is what I'm saying. A lot of people think, well, you can't give Ersson all 10. Maybe 8, maybe 9. My contention is...
you do.
My contention is you have to give them all 10 because all 20 of these points matter because the Caps are coming. I know that the Caps stink. So too does the whole division. Like, they're ahead of the Flyers by .001 in terms of points percentage. They have 2 games in hand, and they're 2 points back.
They have 1 game in hand? They have one game in hand, 2 points back. I believe that's what it is, I think.
We have the standings. We can just look at this. The Flyers have played 72. Washington has played 70.
Oh, no. Okay.
So
got him.
All right, you got me.
It's 2 points back. It's a .563 points percentage versus the Caps .564. So they're basically tied right now.
But they are ahead of the Detroit Red Wings.
Yes.
So even if they were to drop out of the 3 spot, they would still hold the second wild card.
They would still potentially hold that second wild card spot. I just think there's no way you can put Felix Sandstrom back in. You can't do that to the guys. It's throwing the game. You've seen it now. You've started them these last 2 times, and it's been an utter disaster. Like, I don't see how you can do it to them.
I mean, last night was an utter disaster. I don't think the game before that, which game? That was the Boston game?
The 6-5 Boston game.
He gives up a legitimately weak goal at a bad time. However, the Flyers didn't necessarily have to be in that position if they didn't stop playing hockey for 4 minutes at the start of the third period.
Absolutely. No, that they could play better in front of him. You also need a goalie to make a stop sometimes.
Agreed.
And I don't even think he was that bad for a lot of that game.
No, you have to make a stop at that point of the game. It's the pivotal part of the game. It was an awful goal.
If they only had 1 shot on goal, that was the only one that mattered. Like, he needed to make a save. It was that one. It didn't happen. As your team is making a furious comeback against the number 1 team in the league at that point. They might still be. I don't know. It's been bouncing back and forth between like 3 teams. But I just don't know how you can put Felix Sandstrom back in net and sell it to the boys.
So we talked about this a little bit last night, Charlie, I think before you came on, that, like, I feel like bare minimum, you got to give Felix 1 start, and that's one of the back-to-backs.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that.
The Bees are the second of that weekend. They are hideously bad. They are a bad hockey team.
Love that.
There's no reason why the Flyers forward core can't go out there and win that game for their goaltender. Even if Felix Sandstrom shits the bed, if they can lock it up defensively like they did last night, and the goal scorers can actually score goals like they did not do last night, they should win that game. Like, that shouldn't be a problem.
I would agree with that.
So that should be the one that you mark down as Sandstrom's start. And then I guess maybe you just kind of feel the vibe out from there.
Yeah, I would not throw Sandstrom in a game before then, probably.
No.
I mean, if there's any game I would consider putting him into, it would be probably the Chicago game at the end of this week because it's a busy week. Chicago also stinks.
They stink.
You could probably beat Chicago with a really bad goalie in net too. My thing is, and this is, I guess, my big issue. I'll get into my issue with the workload because I think the workload concerns you are brushing aside as if they don't matter.
I'm not brushing them aside. I'm saying it's a risk I'm willing to take.
Okay. Well, it's not necessarily a risk I'm willing to take. However, I also want to make the point that, like, I think people, and I got this sense on Twitter last night too, that people are looking at the Capitals and, like, the Capitals are scaring the hell out of them. I don't think the Flyers have to go 10-0 to make the playoffs.
No.
I don't think this is you can't say, well, every game's a must win. Well, yeah, every game's a must win in the sense that you'd like to win every game. But I don't think the Capitals are going to win every game.
No. I would say, I would go, if I have to start Felix Sandstrom, quite honestly, I'm not doing it against Chicago or in that back-to-back against a bad team. Start him against the fucking Rangers, the game you're probably going to lose anyway.
That's a fair point.
You have to beat Chicago. You have to beat Montreal. You have to beat these awful teams. Columbus, Buffalo. Those are must-win games to me.
It's a fair
Those
point.
are the points you can't throw away. And putting Felix Sandstrom in those games really decreases your chance of getting those points. Throw him in against the Rangers because you ain't getting the points anyway in those games.
I mean, that's what we said about Boston on Saturday, and they got those points.
They did. I would never start Felix Sandstrom. I'm saying in the world in which I have to, I'm doing it in the games that you probably won't win because what's the difference? I need to win those games against the bad teams, and it will be demoralizing to lose those games. Yes, the Capitals are not good. This could just be the little hot stretch that we saw Buffalo go on, that we saw the Pens go on.
The Islanders when they won 6 straight,
Islanders,
when they immediately lost
and then
6
they
straight.
all fell off. I think the big difference here is Alex Ovechkin. I have no idea what happened to this man. He had 8 goals through 43 games.
He got bored.
He now has 8 goals in the last 5. He has 18 in the last 25. The best goal scorer of all time is playing like the best goal scorer of all time. That is a fear of mine, that if he's carrying them to this degree, and it could go away forever. He's 102 years old. He could just stop playing
How
again.
dare you.
He could just stop playing again. It's possible. But he's been awesome, and if he's awesome, they're scary to me.
So here is really the reason why I don't want to do this. And it really just boils down to the workload. You are already giving Sam Ersson a lot of games. Okay. So we're going back to, because I'm not gonna go back to before the All-Star break, because number one, that was a weird situation. The Hart stuff was just coming out. Before that point, Ersson was essentially in a timeshare with Hart. Once you come out of the All-Star, and then you have a week off. Yeah. So everybody has a chance to reset. Since the All-Star break, Sam Ersson has gotten 17 out of 21 starts. Now, he hasn't played in complete games in all of those because some of them he's gotten pulled. But he's gotten 17 out of 21 starts. That's 81% of the starts. That's a 66 start pace over 82 games. That's a lot. He's already
That's a shit ton.
Already getting a lot of games over this stretch. Looking at last year, the guy who had the most appearances was Connor Hellebuck and UC Saros. They got 64 games all of last season. So right now, since the All-Star break, Sam Ersson has been on a more demanding pace for the past month and a half than Hellebuck and Saros had all last year. That already worries me that you are putting a little bit, just now, the current status quo already worries me that you are giving Sam Ersson a little too much of a workload. We had that moment when he had those 2 bad games early in the month. Yeah. And we had conversation on this show. Oh God, is he running out of gas? Then they pull back a little bit. They gave Sandstrom an extra start in the Boston game in Boston. And we were like, that makes sense. Give him a chance to reset, give him a chance to catch his breath. He comes back, he plays better. We're all happy. Now, you're already giving Sam Ersson more starts than you ideally probably would want to, because your backup goalies aren't very good because Hart's gone. If you do what you are suggesting, which is go into the next 10 games and 22 games, planning to give Ersson all 10. Now, as you note, maybe that's not the way it has to be. Maybe Washington falls off. Maybe you're able to play Sandstrom in the final couple games because you clinch. But if you're going in with the plan that Ersson is going to get 10 out of 10 the rest of the way, including a back-to-back, that means that if that's the way it plays out, that since the All-Star break, Sam Ersson will close out the season with what essentially for 2.5 months is a 71 start pace over the course of a full season. The last time a goalie got that pace over a full season was 2015 when it was Braden Holtby at peak Braden Holtby and Jonathan Quick when he was still very much workhorse Jonathan Quick. I would be terrified if you decide to give Ersson that many starts that by the end you are getting these qualities. The starts you're getting from Sandstrom now, I would be expecting to get these kinds of starts from Ersson. And the problem is then you're really screwed because then you have no other choice. It's either get Sandstrom quality starts from Ersson or just get Sandstrom quality starts from Sandstrom, and then you're fucked. So to me, and then that's not even accounting for the fact that you want to give Ersson, who presumably could be part of your long-term future, a real chance to flourish in this situation, not get injured in this situation. I think that is too much to put on Ersson. In my opinion, I would rather, personally, and again, we're sucked into the idea of the playoffs mattering a lot because, hey, it'd be great to make the playoffs.
Because it's fun.
I would be willing to sacrifice the playoffs if it means not to burn out Sam Ersson. I would. Because I don't think the playoffs are that important.
Oh,
I think it's important if you've come this far and you've chosen the path they have with this rebuild to make, I mean, the games matter now.
The games matter now. You're playing meaningful games already.
I just think, I believe you are no longer a rookie once you have played playoff hockey. You have now played hockey at the absolute highest level, Stanley Cup playoff hockey, that's it. That sort of experience is huge for the guys who haven't been there in a while and the guys who haven't been there ever on this team. I just named most of the roster. It's building importance to me for this team to have a goal and now accomplish it.
Yeah.
Like at the beginning of the season, this shit didn't matter. I don't care. Play six skaters, have no goalie. I don't care. Lose every game. Now there's 10 games left. They've been in a playoff spot for like 110 consecutive days. Yeah. Finish the job. And I don't think you're going to be able to finish the job with Felix Sandstrom. I think the best course of action, play Ersson and then hope you clinch before those last 2-3 games of the year and then put whoever in. Sign a college free agent. Don't give a shit.
The other guy.
Whoever. Like, yeah, the dude from the ECHL whose name I still haven't looked up.
But I guess my thing is that if you do that, if you are playing Ersson every game, you are doing it presumably out of fear that the Capitals are too hot and you can't afford to drop any games because they're rolling. If that's the case, though, if that's why you're doing it,
run into the Caps last
then you
day.
run into the Caps last game of the year and Ersson is completely burnt out.
What if he's not completely burnt out? What if he thrives in this environment of this, like this Marty Brodeur-esque workload where it's like some goalies, and we've seen Charlie lays out the amount of games. It's not as if he's accustomed to this sort of workload.
No one is at this point.
No, there aren't goalies who do this anymore.
This just isn't what happens at the
Roy
NHL
Halladay level. Like, oh yeah, guess who doesn't, like, no one throws 9 complete games in a season anymore. You know, that's kind of what we're asking. Let's see if he can do it. What if he's the...
Listen.
There aren't good answers here. Their backup goalie coming into the season, we are now asking whether he starts 8 or 9 or 10 to play at like a 65-game pace. That isn't ideal for anyone.
No, it's not.
The whole goaltending situation got thrown into upheaval when all the Carter Hart shit unraveled. And I guess you could say maybe they should have seen this coming and had a backup plan. They had the opportunity to pick up
Antti
Raanta. Did I say Niemi last night? I might have.
Maybe you did.
And I've made that
You've
mistake
been
before.
Kelly.
That was your fault that I just fucked up.
I thought
it's Antti Raanta, not Antti Niemi. Niemi was the guy who beat Leighton in the cup final.
Yes. I was driving here today.
Seared into my brain forever.
I was driving here today. Like, did I say Niemi last night? Well, all right. We got to make sure we clarify. Yes, they could have had, I guess, Raanta.
Yeah.
Is that the mistake here?
Yes.
I think is that the big? You could have had him for nothing. And I see we have a super chat. We're going to get to it.
Let's
I can't read it, so someone else
let's do the super chat when we get into the mailbag.
Oh, okay.
Because it's basically a mailbag question. So let's do that when we get to the mailbag question.
I'm not saying this, Briere should be fired because he didn't pick up but like, is this maybe his biggest miss thus far?
It's a little bit of a miss. And mostly because, if I remember correctly, Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, they did the Johnson thing before Raanta was waived, right?
I would have to look at the time frame. I think they were kind of around the same time because they traded for. I think Raanta was available before.
Oh, okay.
Because they traded for Johnson on deadline day. They made the Walker trade on Wednesday, and I think they traded. If I remember correctly, they traded for Johnson on deadline day. I think Raanta was waived either Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay. Yeah. So picking up Johnson instead of picking up Raanta, I think was Briere's.
You could have done both, though.
But then they would have had to do the LTI.
They ended up having to do that anyway.
Oh, that's true.
I mean, you're using LTIR now because they ended up not being able to send Ryan Johansson down to the minors because he's hurt. So he's still on their rosters. They ended up having to tap in a long-term injured reserve anyway.
But presumably they didn't think
they didn't think that, but
yeah, right.
They
but
could
see,
have.
in hindsight, like you should have just not like fucking just do it.
The only thing I can think of with Ronta, and it's annoying right now because our internet connection isn't good, so I can't actually look at his stats. But if I remember correctly,
He is not good.
So Ronta's been down in the minors, and he's been playing like crap in the minors too. So like maybe, let me put it this way: if the Flyers, and I don't know this one way or the other, but if the Flyers passed on claiming Antti Ronta because they think, well, we want to give Felix Sandstrom the shot, that was objectively stupid and wrong. If they passed on Ronta because they scouted his games and Kim Dillball watched a couple and is like, this guy is so structurally screwed right now, I can't fix him in 2 weeks. If we pick him up, he just will be bad for us, just as bad as Sandstrom will likely be for us as well. Then I at least understand it.
That's fair.
Maybe maybe Ronta's just pissed he's in the minors and that's why he's sucking. And if he was in the pros, he'd be fine. I don't know.
I realize, like, okay, if we are going to make a move and it's pointless, like, let's just, the idea of structurally screwed. Felix Sandstrom looks at times like a rug hockey goalie, just throwing himself willingly. I don't know what. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this. And I hate like this pile on Sandstrom. Like, it's not his fault. He's not good. Like, they should have other goalies in the system. Hopefully, some are coming. We'll have some questions about them coming up, so we can once again dispel those possibilities.
Well, I mean, we should discuss the possibility.
But we do have a few goalie questions here.
Yes, Antti Ronta, my internet finally started working. Antti Ronta has 4 starts in the AHL for the Chicago Wolves, not an .861 save percentage, which is real friggin' bad.
Not great, pal.
.872 save percentage in the NHL this year. I am not close enough to the Ronta situation to know if that is I don't want to be in the minors, so I'm not even going to bother trying, or if it's my game is so off kilter a mess that he might be even worse than Sandstrom. I don't know.
The Flyers team save percentage, it might have changed. I heard this on, I want to say maybe Daily Faceoff or Puck Soup last week. Since January 20th, Flyers team save percentage is like .858.
Is that good?
It's going to be, if that was a full season, it would be the worst by miles in like history.
We all silly like the mayor.